What piece of advice would you give? Because I'm sure that after we release this podcast, a lot of translators are gonna be watching this. So, since you're a seasoned translator, what advice would you give to the newcomers that are coming in the market? And uh, if they're looking for opportunities out there, where should they look?
Right on. So it's really quite simple. If you want to have a booming translation business and a successful career, you really need to specialize. That would be my number one piece of advice. If you are another translator who's out there saying, I've got X number of years of experience and I just translate whatever you send my way, you've got a Hotmail address, that's not going to cut it in the coming years. It's not going to cut it, and that may actually be good news in the sense that we're going to have to up our game collectively as a profession and learn to market a little bit. Other professions have learned this stuff, right? These are totally learnable skills. But in a nutshell, you need to specialize and you need to show your clients your value. So by talking about your specializations and having credentials in those areas, you can do very well. I know many translators who, for example, do pharmaceutical translation and they never want for work. Quite the opposite. They have too much all the time and have to keep raising their rates. So that's one piece of the puzzle. Is I would say it's very important to specialize and to learn like the basics of marketing so that you know how to showcase your expertise in a way that will speak to clients, because it's not about you, it's about the client. It's about the outcome that they are looking for. And then the other piece I would say, so number one is specialize. And number two, I do think that in the coming years, it's a really good idea to develop valuable, complementary, closely related skills that will just allow you to offer a complete package. So, like to give you a down to earth example of this, there are translators who are passionate about SEO. And so they can learn to do SEO translation and offer those services. And that is extremely, extremely, extremely valuable. It's sort of a combination of understanding search engines and a lot of statistical information and also text and also writing and copywriting and all these things. And by the way, I just said another one out loud, copywriting. Copywriting is another thing that you can absolutely add to your gamut of services. These are learnable skills. There are programs for these things that you can go through to gain, solid credentials. And so I'm not saying that you necessarily need to be a jack of all trades, but I am saying it's wise to specialize, and it's also wise to think about adding value in your services. So if you offer SEO translation, someone just actually wrote on a post of mine right before we jumped on this call, someone was writing on LinkedIn, I've teamed up with a graphic designer, and since I do SEO as a translator and she's able to do graphic design, we're able to offer a complete package. So translators that I know that are doing this kind of thing, and there are many permutations of this, right? The possibilities are endless. Find something you're passionate about, team up with another expert if you want, and then offer value-added services, because in the future, the more you can bundle things together, the more clients will tend to see the full value of the translation.
Do you think that translation, because of all these tools, some clients or some people out there might not see the value anymore because people who don't know will jump to the conclusion that, oh, it's easy now. You just put it into a DeepL or ChatGPT and you get a result and that's your work. So we're going to cut your rates or anything else.
Yes. Unfortunately, I agree with that prognosis. I do think that because these tools are so widespread, because they are free in many cases, so they are more democratized, for example, than in other professions. These are issues. So, for example, if you go to a dentist and they're using a new AI diagnosis tool, because it's not a democratized tool and it requires a lot of specialization to be able to understand it and run it, people will understand if the dentist is charging a little bit more to use a tool that adds value. So here's where it gets interesting, though. If you think about what we do as translators, if we're using technology, for example, DeepL, okay, just throw it out there as an example. If you're using it and you're able to deliver your text one day faster to your client, the real question we should be asking ourselves is not, is it worth less? The real question we should be asking is, for the client, if they get the translation earlier, one day earlier, is that objectively worth more money or less money? Right? That's the question we should be asking. Objectively speaking, if they're getting something faster because you invested in a specialized tool that enables you to deliver the same quality, but a little bit faster for them, you're paying for this tool, you're investing in the tool, you're taking training on this tool, right? Maybe through Lion Translation Academy, right? So why on earth would you start charging less because you are adding value to your services? So there is a negative public perception, and you're right. There's a consumer awareness issue. However, it can be solved at least partly simply by positioning ourselves differently and speaking to our clients the way that other professions are doing it, so that you can talk about value for them. If they get the translation a day early, that's huge, right? Most translations are time sensitive. So there are solutions out there. I have a complete value kit that I'm putting together for translators and interpreters right now with the whole toolkit of solutions and down to earth things you can do in your everyday life to help clients understand your value and be more than willing to pay premium rates. The great news is that these are learnable skills, right? Other professions got on board. I think with translation, we're not there yet, perhaps because we're a very young profession, as a regulated profession, at least with bodies like OTAC, we're a very young profession compared to others that have had perhaps a little more time to figure this stuff out.